Hello and welcome. It's Frances here. Thank you for coming back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I bid thee welcome. There is a subscribe button below if you'd like to help support this channel by subscribing, and also a bell to be notified as to when I upload more content. I'm coming to you from Ghana country, and as such, I acknowledge the Ghana people of the Adelaide Plains as being the traditional custodians of this land. So I did do a couple of weeks ago my occult tea hashtag response, and that sort of inspired or got the thoughts churning around about now and then, shall we say, about how things that I was taught and the lens that I look out of when it comes to all forms of witchcraft and magic, how some of these terminology techniques don't seem to marry up with, in particular, words. The use of words appears to be changed in our modern world. Modern practitioners seem to be doing a lot of things that sometimes I'm finding myself questioning as to just why, how, what's the purpose of it. I'm not saying it's wrong, just saying I don't understand. There's instead a lot of sort of practices coming in that I am curious as to how they fall under a witchcraft umbrella or terminology being used. And again, as I said, it's not wrong, it's just coming through my lens. So I thought I'll do just a series of, should we say, open discussion, just thoughts. And if you can sort of bring me into the 21st century, bring me up to date, just sort of make the comments below. And I do hope that this doesn't come across too negative. I am trying to word it in a way where it doesn't appear as saying, well, back in my day, this is correct and what they're doing is wrong. It's just like, I don't understand. So I just want just seeking some clarification or some more information. As I said, yeah, trying to bring me into the 21st century and understanding why people do things the way they do these days, because I don't understand. Yeah, I've just said it 3 times now. Okay, so I said there's going to be a series, so there's going to be a playlist if you're interested, and yeah, we'll see how this emerges. So the first topic, which could be very controversial, is moon water. So unless you've been residing under a rock for the last couple of years, all across social media, not to mention numerous books, especially those have been written on modern witchcraft by really modern practitioners, you will find instructions on how important it is to use moon water in your magical working. Now, I'm wondering, is this just a modern trend that's circulating due to the sort of anything goes attitude towards witchcraft these days? Or is there something more to this that maybe has been discovered? And so my generation of magical practitioner, we've missed out on that. And I'm saying that because I've been involved in magic, metaphysics, contemporary witchcraft for 30 years or so. And I have to confess that while I am familiar with the concept of moon water, and I may have actually used it probably once or twice, I'm not actually familiar with the way it's being created, how it's being used today. So this is what this discussion is all about. And it doesn't, it could have something to do with me actually. I tend to live in a cave these days, especially when it comes to the peripheral of social media platforms. I'm on a few, and that's enough to waste my time. I've got other things I would like to be doing. And when I also venture out into the real world, especially when it comes to magical sort of areas or events and things like that, I tend to circulate in rather selective circles. So I tend to beginning to wonder this ignorance that I have in particular to the somewhat modern craze about moon water, I'm finding it rather puzzling, especially amongst the social media platforms where people are getting, shall we say, rather excited, especially if they miss making this precious moon water once a month when the moon is full. It's almost as if they think that the sky will fall on their heads or the grounds will open up before them. And if you aren't aware, or have not heard of all this fuss as to what moon water actually is, from what I gather, all you need to do is to grab a jar or a bowl, fill it up with water, any kind of water, they don't specify what sort of water, and place it outside during the rays or under the rays of a full moon, where it will absorb the energy of Lady Luna, and voila, something magical has manifested, and you can use this magical water apparently for anything from cleansing spiritual implements to blessing altars to adding to spell jars and a whole lot more, apparently. The whys and the hows this happen are questions that I've found tend to meet with rather vague explanations and almost indignant, sort of like, it works, it's so powerful, it's all about intent. Yeah, it could be about intent, but that's a whole different ballgame, rabbit hole to go down. I've also come across social media experts attempting to link this usage of moon water as far back to the 18th and 19th century. However, when you ask for evidence, nothing materializes. So if you do have evidence of using moon water in this way, how it's made in this way, that stems from the 18th and 19th century, please link them below, put your answers in the comments, because I'm rather curious to that. Because when it comes to moon water, I'm actually familiar with that wordage. There's such a thing, wordage, that phrase. I know what, I know how to make moon water. I have a recipe, or I talk about moon water actually in my book on the silver rays. However, my interpretation of moon water is that it is a potion of some sort of description, I guess, actually made from not only the moon or the water that has been charged by the moon, but there has been specific herbs relating to a chosen purpose added to that water while it's being charged by the moon. And it's not just the full moon, it's any particular phase of the moon. And these herbs have also been personally in charge by the practitioner. Then you go through a filtration process because botanicals can rot and dissolve in water, thus making the water basically polluted and toxic, depending on what you're using it for. There's also within other magical traditions the process of making magical condensers. And the use of these can be found in various grimoires. Don't know a few off the top of my head, but I'm quite sure the Magus by Francis Barrett mentions it. 3 books of occult philosophy talks about condensers. Not 100% sure, but a lot of the grimoires, magical texts do talk about magical condensers, where, as the name suggests, a certain volume of fluid is boiled down until it's about half the original amount, i.e. it is condensed. And then that pure water, shall we say, is sort of transformed again. And I say pure water because the original water is usually spring water, pure spring water, rainwater, or even artisan bottled water. It has to come from a pure source as opposed to normal tap water. Now, I wouldn't use my rainwater or rainwater from my tank. My rainwater tank because my rainwater tank's open to the elements. I don't have a spring close to me, so I wouldn't use spring water. I do have a tap purifier, so I would use that water from that purification tap, or I would buy a bottle of, and it just needs to be a little bottle of bottled water from a pure source, which gets boiled down. Now, this water, to transform it into a moon or a lunar condenser, will be done on a certain phase of the moon, a certain day that relates to the moon, even specific hours that are aligned with the moon, and then into it specific herbs that all have lunar properties, that have been empowered, charged by the practitioner, all added into this water that has been condensed down. And then this liquid with all the herbs under all these timings and lunar phases, etc., is boiled for a second time, then strained, and then reboiled for a third time, thus reducing the volume of the liquid even further, really condensing it. And then there's some sort of preservative, usually brandy or vodka, or even benzoin can be added to preserve your magical condenser. And then it's that magical condenser. So it's almost like a herbal remedy where you've got really potent and strong, is used within magical rites such as scrying, cleansing scrying, implements, etc. So in both of these practices, the making of the moon water, as I mentioned in my book, where you sort of get the water charged by the moon and adding herbals or botanicals into it, sort of leaving them and then straining them off, sort of making a tincture or a tea, or a lunar condenser, as I've just described, where you sort of reboil the water 3 times. A great deal of personal energy and time, not to mention the empowering of the herbs, the botanicals, etc., is utilized by the practitioner, the maker of the moon water. So that's how I was taught. That's what I understand when people talk about magical waters. So what makes me scratch my head about this modern way of making moon water is this lack of personal input, especially if all you need to do is to simply leave a bottle of water or a bowl or a jar out under the lunar rays. And how I'm thinking is that if this is all you need to do to make this powerful moon water that everybody on social media goes on about, then all water in the rivers, waters in the oceans, the lakes, the streams, even dog bowls, puddles, are moon water, are made from moon water. Even my bird bath contains moon water because it's out under the light of the moon, absorbing the rays. So in my thinking, this means that the flying rats, the pigeons, in my backyard are being empowered each and every time they splash around in my bird bath, dirtying the water, much to the honeyeater's disgust. So I'm struggling to understand how simply leaving out a bowl or a jar of water under the moon makes it magical, because it seems a very passive practice to me. As I said, there seems to be a real void of any real personal input. And this is something that I've always had taught to me, of how important it is when it comes to magic, of adding your own energy into it. There are other sources that may have sort of influenced this modern concept of moon water that I'm sort of putting out there. One in particular comes from Ayurvedic practices, where, as far as I am aware of, Ayurvedic practices or healing has nothing to do with witchcraft in any way, shape, or form. But then again, witchcraft has been accused or described as being a rather magpie religion. If you see this magpie practice, taking practices or techniques from other traditions and putting its own special spin on it. So Ayurvedic medicine, if you're not aware, is a system of traditional medicine native to India, and the treatments can vary. They can include yoga, acupuncture, herbal medicine, massage therapy, and probably one of the more common practices is dietary changes based on one's doshas or health type. There's three main health types or doshas, but they can interweave as well. Now, according to Ayurvedic philosophy, lunar energy is cooling, and as such, it can actually help reduce inflammation and reset imbalances. There's also the belief that moon bathing, being, I suppose, skyclad, being naked under the moon, and the use of moon water can result in certain benefits, like giving relief from hormonal imbalances, migraines, hives, stress, anxiety. When you think about it, these are all sort of like hot, active illnesses or diseases. So the cooling effects of the moon can calm these down. Now, if we bring the social media concept into the equation, then in May 2022, an Ayurvedic doctor, Nikalia Kolai, posted on social media that drinking water that's been charged by the moon is highly essential for your physical and emotional upliftment. If I can find that or mention of that post, I'll put that below. So what I'm beginning to wonder, and although I do think that this, can I say, I know craze sounds a little bit negative, but this interest, shall we say, in moon water has predated 2022, which is when this post came out. But I'm wondering whether part of this Ayurvedic philosophy about the moon being a cooling effect and having this energy to uplift you emotionally and physically, whether that's been adopted somehow into modern witchcraft practices, or maybe it is just the homeopathic concept that water has memory, and that's been sort of included in this whole concept of moon water. So I guess the point of this video is I still don't really understand what the fuss is all about in relation to moon water, especially this modern concept, and is it worth it? At the end of the day, I don't believe that simply putting out a bowl or a jar of water under the moonlight, regardless of whether you've put a crystal in it or around it or not, is making it any more powerful than, say, the moon water in my bird bath. I know it's being very flippant. However, this opinion that I'm circulating is based on my own training when it comes to magic and witchcraft, which, as I've indicated earlier, involve being a little bit more active, putting a little bit of your energy, such as charging the botanicals, into your workings. Is also something that may be outdated these days. So I guess I need a little bit more convincing. Having said that, however, we all know about the power of placebos. Not that I'm saying that this modern technique is a placebo. However, I'm wondering whether that could be what is happening. People are tapping into this placebo, this magical egregore that's being built up, this energy consciousness about how powerful moon water is, and running with it, and in feeding the egregore. I said, I don't know. My jury is still out. And this is why I decided to do this series, sort of open up these discussions. If you're able to shed some light on the why and hows this particular way of making moon water is so powerful. If you have another way of making moon water, another use that I haven't mentioned, please feel free to put in the comments below. Because, yeah, I don't know everything, and I'm very interested in learning more about, even understanding why moon water is such a thing these days. So I look forward to reading your comments. Blessings.